This book is genuinely scary. If you want to be really scared, pick this up. It will freak you out. Nightmare material right there. It's nightmare material, but so good. Hi everybody, and welcome back to a new, very spooky video on my booktube channel, Books with Leo. I'm super excited today to be bringing you this video in full costume. If any of you guys know exactly as who I am dressed, let me know in the comments down below. I'm feeling super witchy and like the devil's wife tonight, so that's really exciting. I'm going to be talking about some of my favourite spooky books, or just books that I thought were really good for this spooky season. Some horror reads, just some general atmospheric reads, and some ghost reads, of course. I personally am a big ghost book fan. I love every book that's got ghosts in them. I'm like, has it got ghosts? I want to read it. And so this Halloween, I've also read quite a few ghost books. So I'm really excited to talk about all these books. And yeah, I'm also really curious to hear what you guys are dressing up for this Halloween. I feel like finally we can celebrate Halloween again a little bit. We can actually go places and see our friends. And it's just so exciting. Halloween is one of my favourite holidays. I love dressing up, a bit spooky and stuff like that. So I'm super excited about this year as well. So yeah, without any further ado, let's talk some books. The first book I want to talk about today is Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab, but also the first book in this series, which is called City of Ghosts. So this is one of Victoria Schwab's middle grade series, and this was really popular like when it came out, but I haven't really heard a lot about it since. But it is a series I really enjoy. I must say it's not like a big favourite. Most of the books have been like 4 to 3 stars, but it is a series I tend to sort of gravitate back toward again during the fall season, during Halloween. It's like a comfort type of thing. In this series we follow Cassidy Blake, who has had a near-death experience and can now see ghosts, and she has a ghost best friend called Jacob, and together they go on all these adventures. And there's this really interesting irony in this series, because Cassidy can see ghosts, but her parents have this famous ghost hunter TV show, but they cannot actually see ghosts, and they don't believe all her ghost stories either. So in each book, we go to a different big city that is supposedly super haunted, where her parents are going to film a new episode for the TV show. So the first book is set in Edinburgh. The second book, this one, is set in Paris. I think this one is my favourite so far, just because Paris. But, you know, Edinburgh is also an amazing city if you ever have the opportunity to visit. Like, I'm planning on going again. It's so wonderful and so creepy. But Paris is also one of my favourite cities, so I was really excited to read this, and it has all the Paris vibes. It's so good. I just finished my reread of this like yesterday or something. But yeah, just the atmosphere and the catacombs and everything in this book, so spooky, so creepy, perfect for this season. So yeah, I think if you're into Paris, definitely pick this one up. And the last book, which I think is called Bridge of Souls, is set in New Orleans, which is also, of course, a super haunted city. So that's definitely one I would also recommend. So this series is definitely one I would highly tip you guys for Halloween, because it's just really creepy and spooky, but it has a lot of humour and it's so much fun. And I think if you're into like Halloween-y stuff, but you're not really big on actually being scared, like really scared of books, then this is one I would recommend, because this one is more sort of like fun and scary instead of like actually mortified to death, you know? So that's a good balance. The next book I'd like to recommend is also a very recent read, and that is Tales of the Peculiar by Ransom Riggs. This is technically seen a novella in the Peculiar series, but if you've not read any of the Miss Peregrine books, you can still perfectly dive into this one. I personally liked it better than the main series, and that's just because all the tales in here really remind me of some of my childhood favourites, like creepy, scary stories with twisted things happening in them, you know, just like really scary and spooky. So this is a collection of short stories that are all sort of fairy tale like, but all of them are just really messed up, really. Like, there's one about cannibals, there's one about this girl that can turn into a bird and is sort of cast out by every community she lives in. It's about greed, friendship. There's one about a girl who can see ghosts and the only friend she has is a ghost, and that one is about like making friends and discovering life and the way it's supposed to be. And it's just, there's so many interesting elements in this, a lot of morale, but also a lot of interesting characters, and just a book that I really enjoyed and that is really easy to get through. So if you're looking for a quick read this Halloween season, would highly recommend this one. Then the next book I want to talk about is for all my romance readers and people who are into smutty stuff out there. And that book that I want to talk about is Witches of New Orleans by Bridget Dellery. Guys, I did not know anything about this book going in. I just thought the cover was really stunning. I love illustration type covers, but this was spicy. There was a lot of smut happening in this book, and it's all witchy themed, and it was just so much fun, and I want to recommend it to everybody. Like, it's not a literary masterpiece by any means, but it was just so much fun, and I want to read more stuff like this. So if you have any witchy, smutty, like Halloweeny book recommendations, definitely throw them on my way. I'd love to hear them. But basically we follow 5 witches who are all in the New Orleans coven in this book, and there's like 5 short stories, and each is about one of the witches. There's a masquerade ball in here, there's an enemies with benefits couple in here, which was one of my favorite things. There's an influencer witch in this book, which is really cool. I'd never heard of that concept before. It's like such an interesting way to sort of combine urban fantasy and witchy elements. There's also a queer couple in here who have the perfect disaster romance that I just loved so much. There's vampires, there's secret governments, there's so many things happening for such a short book, but it was so good and it was so much fun. If you've just got like an afternoon free and you're not sure what to do, please pick up this read. You will not regret it. It was so much fun. So yeah, this is definitely one I would highly recommend if you're looking for something spicy but still fun and witchy and filled with fantasy elements. Then I've got 2 books by Emma Carroll I want to recommend. The first one is also really short, so if you're doing a readathon or you just want to get like a quick read to switch things up, I would highly recommend this one, and that is The Ghost Garden, which is about a girl called Fran, and she lives near this estate. Her family help out there, and she helps out in the garden with her dad, and she finds a bone, but she accidentally breaks the bone. And then a few seconds later, one of the annoying boys out in the yard also breaks his leg in a really similar way. And from that point on, Fran discovers more and more secrets about the house, the garden, and is it connected? Is there something witchy, spooky happening there? She's not sure. This was such a sinister read, especially for a middle grade. It has some really scary elements in it, and I love it when middle grades get spooky. And it really reminded me a lot of Coraline, which is one of my favourite books ever. So I really enjoyed this story. Another book I would highly recommend, also by Emma Carroll, is Through the Woods, which is a graphic novel. This graphic novel genuinely gave me the creeps. Like, it freaked me out. It was so scary. Like, so many of the illustrations in here just really gave me some goosebumps, and I was like, oh, there's some scary stuff going on here. Like, every other story I was like freaked out, but in a really good way. So if you're looking for something genuinely scary but also with gorgeous illustrations, pick up these 2 books. Really good, really enjoyable, but not like can't sleep at night, except maybe for Through the Woods, which was genuinely kind of scary. But like The Ghost Garden is not that scary. So those are my other recommendations. Then another book I'd love to recommend for Halloween is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This book is great for any season, but for Halloween especially, pick it up. Pick it up right now. This is about Yadriel, who has summoned a ghost, and he cannot get rid of the ghost that he summoned. He was trying to do this ritual to prove that he's a real brujo because his family is not really accepting his gender, but then he accidentally summons this bad boy witch. There's some romance going on there. They're trying to figure out who killed this ghost and what happened to him, and they're also trying to make Yadriel's family actually accept him. And then there's also Maritza, who's Yadriel's best friend and who's just the most wonderful sidekick. This whole book was filled with so much banter and humour. It tackled some really important topics of gender and discovering who you are, discovering your sexuality, making new friends. And it was just all around so wonderful and so well done, and it was a really heartwarming but still spooky read, and something I would just highly recommend. Oh, and also the special edition of this book is so gorgeous. Like, I wish I owned it. It's so beautiful. Then another book, which I've actually not finished, but I still want to recommend because what I've read of it, I really enjoyed, and I need to pick it up again. This is Witches of Ashen Room by E. Latimer. I've taken the dust jacket off. This book is so cool. It's basically a sapphic romance. It's enemies to lovers. It's 2 opposing covens, 2 witches. It's also a sort of serial killer story, so there's that element as well. The main character is called Dana, and she's really on this discovery of her identity. She's bisexual, but she's also struggling with OCD, and she's struggling with her family and their expectations and the small Irish town that she lives in and what those people think of her. And it's basically 2 opposing covens. There's a romance, there's a serial killer on the loose, and all these elements to come together in this story. I've read like the first half of it, and then I sort of forgot I was reading it, which happens to me, and that says nothing about the book. That's just me personally, but I really need to pick it up again, and I want you guys to also pick it up if this sounds good to you. Then this is an old classic I had to recommend again on this channel, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. Guys, to me, this book just screams fall. It's like the perfect fall read. It's just such a Halloweeny, scary, spooky read, but it's just so atmospheric, and I need to put it in your face so you read it. It's really devious. We follow Stevie, who's an amateur sleuth, and she's obsessed with true crime and stuff like that, and she's sent to Ellingham Academy, which is basically this academy for gifted children, and then a murder happens there, and she's also trying to solve something that happened way back in like a different timeline, also at Ellingham Academy, where the founder's wife and his daughter were kidnapped, and there's these clues that are being left in Ellingham Academy. But there's also an amazing discussion surrounding mental health. It's just really atmospheric, like especially where they describe the academy and all its reading nooks and crannies and hallways and secret places you can go to, and it's so cool, and it's a book I wish everybody would read because it's just so much fun, and the whole series is really cool. I still have not read the final book. I'm so sorry. I really want to read it, but I just keep not reading it because I kind of forgot what happened in the first two, so I'm due for a reread. Like I mentioned before, Coraline is also one of my favourite Halloweeny reads. I try to reread it every year. I still need to do the reread this year. But Coraline is basically about this girl called Coraline who moves to a new house, and there she discovers this really tiny weird door, and she's like, where does this door go? She doesn't know. And then she goes through one night and she discovers this whole different world where her parents have buttons instead of eyes, and she's like, oh my god, everything is so much better here. Like, her parents pay attention to her, she gets all these toys, but something is a little bit off. And from there on out begins this really scary journey where everything just becomes more and more twisted and scary, and it's just the epitome of be careful what you wish for, but it's so good. It's one of my favourite Neil Gaiman books, and I read this for the first time when I was growing up. I was properly scared by it. I was so freaked out, and then growing older I watched the movie, and the movie's one of my favourites, the book is one of my favourites, and I would highly recommend it for this Halloween season. And then last but not least, I'd like to recommend to you The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is a book I was really conflicted on last year. I wasn't sure whether it was brilliant or just kind of iffy, but I did really enjoy it, so I still really want to recommend it to you guys. It's basically about this book club of ladies who are obsessed with true crime and reading all these true crime books, and then one of them becomes convinced that her next door neighbour is a vampire and that he's killing all these children around the neighbourhood, and that's basically, they sort of team up as a group to try and catch him, but a lot of things go wrong, and it's just, this book is genuinely scary. If you want to be really scared, pick this up. It will freak you out, and it's just, especially the scenes with the rats, they're so scary, like, nightmare material right there. It's nightmare material, but so good, and I just really enjoyed this. I've also gotten Grady Hendrix's new book that my sister gave to me. Thank you, Julia. So I'm really excited to read that too. Anyway, those were all of my Halloween recommendations. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below what you are reading for Halloween and what you are dressing up as, and give me some recs if you still have some. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see all of you guys in my next video. Bye bye, have a spooky day.